The sun in Phoenix does not just warm you, it hunts you. For 27 years, I worked as a roofer in Mesa, Arizona, spending my days on top of boiling asphalt shingles and scorching clay tiles. I am Dale Hutchinson. I am 66 years old now, though my body used to feel like it was 100. When I was 63, I made a choice that saved my life. You see, the work that built my life was actively destroying my health. It is the body's bill. We all pay it eventually, but roofers pay it with heavy interest. My knees were gone, ground down to bone against bone. My back was a constant landscape of pain. My blood pressure was dangerously high, and my skin bore the leathery, sun-damaged testament of 27 years under the brutal Arizona sky. And yet, despite giving my body to the American dream, the American medical system was bleeding me dry. The hook of my story is simple, but it is a truth that still brings tears to my eyes. In Phoenix, the heat broke my body, but in Vietnam, the mountains healed it. Today, I stand in a cool mountain town where my 4 essential medications cost me exactly $12 a month. $12 for all 4. Let me take you back to Mesa. I used to keep my old, worn-out roofing knee pads in the garage. They were my anchor object, the heavy sweat-stained foam and plastic that stood between my joints and the blistering roof decks. Every morning, before the sun even crested the Superstition Mountains, I was strapping those knee pads on. By noon, the temperature on a roof could exceed 140 degrees. You could feel the heat radiating through the soles of your boots. The sweat would pour into your eyes, stinging and blinding, but you kept laying down the paper, snapping the chalk lines, and driving the nails. You did it because you had a family. You did it because my ex-wife, Cheryl, and I had 2 beautiful kids to raise, my daughter Ashley and my son Tyler. We lived a good life, a middle-class life, but it was paid for with my cartilage, my spinal discs, and my cardiovascular health. When the body's bill finally came due, it was devastating. The knees gave out first. The menisci tore, the arthritis set in, and the pain became a white-hot spike with every step. Then the back followed. Lumbar degeneration, the doctors called it. Daupukamta, a fancy term for carrying too many bundles of shingles up too many ladders. Then came the blood pressure, soaring into the danger zone, a silent alarm going off in my chest, and the skin damage, the endless biopsies and freeze-offs of precancerous spots. I was a walking casualty of the trade. The medications became my new chain. 4 prescriptions. 1 for the blood pressure, 1 for the nerve pain in my back, 1 heavy-duty anti-inflammatory for the knees, and a statin. The American medication costs, spelled out in full, were an absolute nightmare. The anti-inflammatory was $240 a month. The nerve medication was $180. The blood pressure pills were $60, and the statin was $50, over $500 a month, just to function, just to get out of bed without gasping. And my income? Social Security paid me $1,050 per month. That was it. I was divorced from Cheryl, living in a small apartment, watching more than half my income vanish at the pharmacy counter. I started rationing pills, taking the anti-inflammatory every other day, cutting the blood pressure pills in half. It is a desperate, terrifying way to live. Sitting in the sweltering heat of a Phoenix summer, wondering if today is the day your heart gives out because you tried to save $60. The air conditioning ran constantly, eating up another massive chunk of my $1,050. I was trapped. I was dying. And then I found the contrast between the relentless baking Phoenix summers and the cool, restorative mountain air of Dalat. I discovered Vietnam almost by accident. I was spending my days indoors, scrolling through the internet, looking for a miracle. I stumbled across a video about expats living in Southeast Asia. Most of them were on beaches, which held no appeal for me. I had enough sun for 3 lifetimes, but then someone mentioned Dalat, a city in the central highlands of Vietnam, the city of eternal spring, pine forests, fog rolling through the valleys in the morning, temperatures that rarely climbed above 75 degrees. It sounded like a myth, a fairy tale for a broken roofer. During this time of desperate searching, I read a book that changed my perspective entirely. It was You Were Never Meant to Stay by Alan Walker. The words in that book resonated in my hollowed-out bones. It spoke about outgrowing the soil you were planted in, about finding the courage to uproot and seek a climate where you could bloom rather than wither. You Were Never Meant to Stay by Alan Walker gave me the philosophical permission I needed to leave everything I knew. If you want to know more about the resources that helped me, the link is in the comments. Telling Ashley and Tyler was the hardest part. Ashley lives in Scottsdale, working in real estate. Tyler is in Tempe, an engineer. They looked at me as if I had lost my mind. Their 63-year-old father, who had barely traveled outside the Southwest, announcing he was moving to Vietnam on $1,050 a month. Tyler was worried about the medical care. Ashley was worried about the distance. But when I showed them my budget, when I showed them the math of my suffering, they understood. They saw the rationing of the pills. They saw me wince when I stood up. They knew that staying in Arizona meant a slow, painful decline into poverty and immobility. The Dalat arrival was a shock to the system, but in the most beautiful way imaginable. When I stepped off the plane at Lian Kuhuang Airport and took the shuttle up the mountain pass, the air changed. The thick, oppressive heat of the lowlands fell away. The scent of pine needles filled the cabin. It smelled like the high country in northern Arizona, but lusher, greener. When I stepped out into the city, a cool mist was falling. I breathed in, and for the first time in decades, the air didn't burn my lungs. The mountain climate healing began almost immediately. The cool temperatures reduced the swelling in my joints. I started walking. Just a little at first, around Xuan Huang Lake. The even paved paths were a mercy compared to the pitched roofs I was used to. The food was fresh, vibrant, full of vegetables and lean proteins, and incredibly cheap. But the true transformation, the key emotional moment of this entire journey, happened at a small pharmacy near the Central Market. I had brought a 3-month supply of my medications from the States, hoarding them like gold. When they ran low, I took my empty bottles to a local pharmacist. I had a translation app ready on my phone. The pharmacist, a kind woman with gentle eyes, looked at the bottles, nodded, and went to her shelves. She brought back the exact equivalents, the same active ingredients, the same dosages. I braced myself for the cost. I pulled out my wallet, my heart hammering in my chest. She tapped the numbers into her calculator and showed me the screen. The total in Vietnamese dong converted to exactly $12. $12 for a full month's supply of all 4 medications. I stood there handing over the equivalent of $12 and receiving all 4 of my medications, enough for a full month. I started to cry, right there in the pharmacy. The relief was a physical weight lifting off my crushed spine. The burden of the body's bill had suddenly been discounted to a fraction of a penny on the dollar. I wasn't going to have to ration my life anymore. Let me give you a complete financial breakdown of my life in Dalat. My income remains $1,050 from Social Security. My rent for a beautiful one-bedroom apartment with a view of the Pine Valleys is $300 a month. Utilities, including high-speed internet and water, run about $40. I don't need air conditioning. The mountain breeze is free. My groceries and eating out at local puaicho stands and rice places cost me around $200 a month. My medications, as I said, are $12. Add in a bit for transportation and miscellaneous expenses, and I live comfortably, beautifully on less than $700 a month. I am saving money. For the first time in my life, on a tiny pension, I am saving money. The health transformation has been nothing short of miraculous. Without the financial stress, without the crushing heat, without the need to poison my body with cheap processed food, I have lost 30 pounds. My blood pressure is normal. My doctor back in Mesa would not believe his eyes. The nerve pain is still there, a whisper of its former self, but the $12 medications keep it entirely manageable. I walk 3 miles a day around the lake. The worn-out roofing knee pads are a memory, a symbol of a past life that feels like a bad dream. I kept a picture of them on my phone just to remind myself of what I escaped. It is not without its difficulties. The language barrier is real. Vietnamese is a tonal language, and my Arizona drawl doesn't adapt well to it. I stumble through transactions, relying heavily on translation apps and the incredible patience of the local people. There are moments of deep loneliness, missing the familiar comfort of a Sunday afternoon football game with Tyler or a coffee date with Ashley. The time difference is brutal, 14 hours ahead of Arizona, making phone calls a logistical puzzle. The culture shock, the different ways of navigating bureaucracy, the traffic of motorbikes swarming like bees, it all takes adjustment. But then the family visited. Last year, Ashley and Tyler made the long journey across the Pacific. They took the bus up the mountain, looking exhausted and bewildered. But when they saw me waiting for them, standing tall, walking without a limp, their expressions changed. We spent 2 weeks exploring the waterfalls, drinking the rich, chocolatey local coffee, and walking through the flower gardens. Tyler looked at my apartment, looked at my grocery receipts, and shook his head in disbelief. Ashley cried when she saw how relaxed my face was, the permanent grimace of pain finally erased. They understood. They saw that their father had not just survived, he had been reborn. The body's bill is real. Every swing of the hammer, every bundle of shingles carried up a ladder, it all extracts a toll. In America, that toll was going to bankrupt me and leave me a crippled shell. But the world is vast. There are places where the climate is kind, where the medicine is affordable, and where a broken roofer can find peace. I traded the scorching sun of Phoenix for the cool mists of Dalat. I traded $500 in pharmacy bills for $12. I traded sheer survival for actual living. I am Dale Hutchinson. I was a roofer for 27 years. My knees gave out, my back gave out, but my spirit didn't. When the heat and the cost became too much, I packed my bags and found my sanctuary in the mountains of Vietnam. If you are sitting in the heat, feeling the pain in your joints, looking at a pile of medical bills you can never pay, know this: you do not have to stay. The world is wide, and healing might just be waiting for you in a place you have never even considered. I found my eternal spring, and every breath of this cool mountain air is a testament to the fact that it is never too late to start over. The memories of those mesa rooftops never truly fade, even in the cool mist of Dalat. I remember the exact smell of the tar melting and bubbling under a sun that felt angry, a sun that seemed to hold a personal grudge against anyone foolish enough to work beneath it. Every summer in Arizona was a test of endurance. We would start at 4 in the morning trying to beat the worst of the heat, but by 10 o'clock the roof was an oven. You could feel the heat radiating not just from the sun above, but from the shingles below, baking you from both sides. The worn-out roofing knee pads were the only barrier, a pathetic defense against an overwhelming force. I remember the sweat dripping off my nose, pooling on the black paper, evaporating almost instantly. I gave 27 years of my life to that heat. 27 years of my youth, my strength, my vitality, traded for a paycheck that barely covered the mortgage and the kids' braces, the body's bill. It is a terrifying ledger. Every hour in that heat, every heavy lift, was a withdrawal from an account that I didn't know was finite. And when the account was empty, the American system offered no grace, only bills. The contrast is what wakes me up every morning with a smile. I step out onto my small balcony in Dalat, and the air is crisp. It smells of pine and damp earth, a scent so soothing it feels medicinal. The fog rolls through the valleys, thick and white, blanketing the city in a quiet calm. There are no sirens, no roar of freeways, just the distant hum of motorbikes and the crow of a rooster. It is a world away from the concrete sprawl of Phoenix. When I think of the $12 I spend on medications now, I still shake my head. $12. In the United States, $12 might buy you a fast food meal. Here it buys me my life. It buys me mobility, a steady heart rate, and freedom from pain. It is a profound realization that the value of money, the value of life itself, is subjective, tied entirely to geography. As I mentioned earlier, the book You Were Never Meant to Stay by Alan Walker was a crucial catalyst. I read it again recently, sitting in a small cafe overlooking the lake. The words resonated even deeper now that I am living on the other side of my leap of faith. The book speaks of the fear of the unknown, the comfort of the familiar, even when the familiar is slowly killing you. It takes a massive shift in perspective to realize that the pain you know is not better than the uncertainty you don't. Leaving Phoenix, leaving Ashley and Tyler, leaving everything I had known for 6 decades was terrifying, but the alternative was unacceptable. I was not meant to stay in a place that demanded my body as payment for simply existing. I want to emphasize the healing power of this climate. Dalat is not just a place with cheap medicine. It is a place that physically nurtures recovery. The elevation, the cool temperatures, the fresh, unprocessed food available in the markets, it all contributes to a holistic healing that no pill can replicate entirely. I buy my vegetables from a woman in the Central Market who smiles when she sees me coming. I point, I hand over a few thousand dong, and I walk away with a bag full of vibrant greens, fresh tomatoes, and crisp carrots. There are no preservatives, no long supply chains, just food grown in the rich volcanic soil of the highlands, brought to market the same day. This diet, combined with the daily walking and the total elimination of financial stress, has rejuvenated my cells. Of course, the difficulties remain. Missing the family milestones is a sharp ache that never fully goes away. I missed Tyler's promotion celebration. I miss the casual Sunday dinners with Ashley. Video calls are a lifeline, but they are not the same as a hug. I watch them through a screen, separated by a vast ocean and 14 time zones. Yet, when they visited, the validation was profound. Seeing their relief, seeing them realize that their father was safe, healthy, and happy made the sacrifice worthwhile. They saw the pharmacy, they saw the $12 receipt, and they finally understood the magnitude of the escape I had made. They saw the man I used to be, the hunched, pain-riddled roofer, replaced by a man who walks with a steady stride and a clear eye. The body's bill has been paid, or at least the debt has been restructured into something manageable. I am Dale Hutchinson. I survived the heat of Phoenix, the crushing weight of the American medical system, and the fear of the unknown. I found my refuge in the cool mountains of Dalat, Vietnam, a place where my pension is a fortune, where my medications cost the equivalent of a few cups of coffee, and where my worn-out roofing knee pads are nothing more than a ghost story I tell myself to appreciate the present. If you are out there feeling trapped by the cost of staying alive, remember my story. The world is vast. Your sanctuary is out there.